community, ladies and gentlemen, that is suffering the most is the Falun Gong community. They are actually, a lot of them are in concentration camps. You say, well, concentration camp, what do you mean by that? In fact, these forced labor camps that are across China, there are at least 350 of them, were set up by Mao in the 1950s based on the ones in Hitler's Germany and Joseph Stalin's Russia. All it takes is a police signature and you're off to these camps for up to 4 years. When you get to one of these camps, you work 16 hours a day. By the way, I've talked to people who've managed to get out of these camps and to get out of China. In about 15 countries I've met with these people, David Matus and I, and we've talked to them. You work about 16 hours a day. You're fed very poorly. In the case of Falun Gong, you're tortured regularly in absolutely inhuman ways. And you are paid absolutely nothing. So you say, well, what are these people doing in these camps for work? Do you know what they're doing? They're making a whole range of materials ranging from Christmas decorations to shirts, to garments, to slippers, you name it. These things are made in these camps. And you say, well, what happens to them? They're made as subcontractors for multinational companies. And of course, the multinational companies don't want to admit that they're getting these things, for example, Christmas decorations from a forced labor camp. So they go through middle people and they try to put as much distance between themselves and where these goods are coming from. But how many of you knew that we're buying, in the West, we're buying, for example, Christmas decorations made in forced labor camps? I'd be interested in how many of you know that. I don't see any hands going up, so I assume it's not very many. But the problem for these people is even more serious, because every 3 months in these camps, these concentration camps, doctors arrive and only examine the Falun Gong practitioners. They examine their organs, they look in their eyes, they see how healthy they are. And as you may not know, Falun Gong, I'm not a Falun Gong practitioner, but I have the utmost respect for Falun Gong. They're in something like 130 countries now, including, of course, Sweden. And I find them to be honest people who peaceful, non-political, who have all the values that any civilized person would hope to have. What happens is that if, let me pick an example, if Petra needs a new liver, and I know you would never do this, but you can basically fly to Shanghai, you check into the #1 People's Hospital in Shanghai, a doctor, he may well be in military uniform, comes and examines your blood type and your tissue type, gets them down, looks in the computer, and says there's a match for you out in work camp number 250. The poor woman who's in all likelihood a Falun Gong practitioner, because the other prisoners don't get examined for their organs, it's just Falun Gong. She's dragged into an operating room, as you mentioned, and given a light anesthetic. All of her organs are taken out. They're flown from the work camp, probably in rural China, by People's Liberation Army airplanes to Shanghai. You get the new liver, and you're told you're getting it from a convicted murderer who was going to die anyway and so really didn't need the organ. And yes, it's true, some of these organs do come from convicted murderers or other capital offense victims. Do you know how many capital offenses there are in China? The last time I looked, it was 58, including tax fraud. But what I'm saying is that you come back to Stockholm and you have a new liver, and you're fine, and you've probably paid 130,000 US dollars for it. And I met one man, I won't mention the country, who went for a new kidney, and was a military doctor in uniform. This is in our book, we don't give his name. Brought him 8 sets of kidneys before he could find a kidney that was compatible with him. What happened, of course, is that 8 human beings, and I'm sure at least half of them were Falun Gong, were killed so that he could have a new kidney. Can you imagine that this is happening in the 21st century? Happening in a country that's one of the major countries in the world? So what really why I'm here and why a lot of us, including Petra and people, doctors against forced organ harvesting, and a lot of people in a lot of countries, we're trying to get you to help us put enough pressure on the government of China that they will stop this obscene crime against humanity. And I think they're quite close to the point where they're going to stop it. I don't know whether you noticed in the New York Times today, they say that President Xi has announced that forced labor camps are going to be closed. Well, if so, I think that's a significant step forward, obviously. But the trouble is they've announced it before and it didn't happen. Do you, those of you who know China, really think that the government of China is going to give up an immensely profitable industry where every human being who's killed for their organs is worth about $500,000 if their organs are sold? I hope I'm wrong, and I hope it happens, but I'll believe it when I see it. And so time is really of the essence on this, that if you can help us, you can help save innocent men and women's lives by doing something tomorrow, phoning your member of Congress or phoning a member of council, or doing whatever you can, writing a letter to the editor, something like that, to help build the pressure on the government of China. I've told you that. Yeah, the way you say, well, why does this happen? Why are the Falun Gong community being singled out? After all, they do gentle exercises. They believe in truth, compassion, and forbearance. Why would they be being singled out so much? I've heard many explanations of this, but probably the most accurate one is that, as I said before, they grew from 0 to between 70 and 100 million practitioners in about 7 years, which was more practitioners than there were members of the Communist Party. The other reason, I think, is that their values, things like truth, compassion, and forbearance, are completely out of sync with the values of the Communist Party of China.